diving right in. I know that you've had a long and really impressive background in education marketing, going from marketing in the higher education space to now working at Fusion Academy, which is private school education in grades 6 to 12. I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey and how you ended up at Fusion Academy today.
Sure, absolutely. Short version, I was an ad agency guy, copywriter, creative director in B2B and B2C agencies in Chicago for this first chapter of my career. Transitioned into education marketing about 15 years ago. I ran comms for a private college in Chicago for 5 years. Then I led marketing at a higher ed ad agency for 5 years. And now I've been in the K-12 education marketing space for about 5 years now, currently serving, like you said, as Senior Vice President of Marketing at Fusion Academy, where we're building the most personalized schools in the world with one-to-one classes. It's one teacher and one student per classroom, and it lets you match a student's pace and preference exactly so they can learn better, dive deeper, never get left behind. Thrilled being at Fusion. I want to build cool stuff. I want to change the world. That's why I think a lot of us get into to education marketing, and that's why I'm here as well.
Very cool. So I know Fusion has seen some really impressive growth and expansion over the past few years. What do you think, in your opinion, are the driving factors behind that?
We have 80 schools across the nation, along with our online school, Fusion Global Academy. Our second largest competitor and player in the space maybe has 10. So we're the leader in this space by a considerable margin. I think why Fusion has gone from one school to 80 in the past decade is because traditional schools don't work great for everyone. There is an inherent constraint in the traditional classroom through no fault of the school districts or the teacher. But a teacher has to teach 25 to 30 kids at the same time. And so a one-to-one model really solves for that. It allows every student to go at their own pace and match to their learning preference and style. So I think in short, we've seen the market for Fusion because the product is so outstanding and the model so interesting to families.
Definitely. So the one-to-one learning model definitely makes sense as far as the unique selling proposition. I'm curious, how have you leveraged that in your digital marketing tactics for Fusion? And also, I know that you have an extensive background in performance marketing and paid media for higher education. Has that translated really well to the 6 to 12 market and in as far as promoting that unique selling proposition and driving leads and conversions?
I think at every chapter, I assume my entire playbook is going to cross over to the next brand I'm working for, and maybe 15% of it does, and the rest you got to build from scratch again. And I think that's the same as well here. The same practices and the same high-level strategy makes sense, but every market's different. So like the biggest challenge and difference, I think, between promoting Fusion Academy and some of the colleges that I used to promote, no one knows what one-to-one education is, that no one is searching for one-to-one education. We're really creating a category here. And so that's a storytelling exercise. It's not often until a parent comes to campus and walks through and architecturally sees what a one-to-one school looks like, where they have that aha moment. And it's great. Once I can get them to campus, they're sold. The model speaks for itself. The beauty of, oh my God, this is what school was always supposed to be. This is what school at its orthodoxy was, the Socratic, Platonic, Aristotelian model of education. It just makes sense to people. And so my storytelling challenge as a marketer is to create that aha moment ahead of time to convince people about the power so that they come to campus. And so that can be difficult. And so very similar to higher ed marketers trying to get in front of folks as they are college shopping and say, consider me too. It is easier for me to target folks who are searching for private schools. But then I show up interrupting them, and then I need to convince them that the traditional private school model doesn't even work for every kid, and there's a better way to private school, and that's one-to-one. So I think I have a marketing mix of a couple of responsibilities. I need to, one, capitalize on the existing private school shopper open to hearing a pitch, capturing that existing demand for a better school for their student. And then number two, I need to storytell and convince the rest of the world of the value of one-to-one education to create future demand. It's the short and the long term, and it's very similar to what every college marketer has to accomplish as well.
Part of the same thing I've heard in a lot of education brands, one to one or tutoring based or homeschool based, is that a lot of parents look at it as an experiment, whereas really the experiment is kind of traditional education that's in person, that's one to many. Whereas traditionally with Aristotle and some of the greats in history, it has been one to one.
And it's really funny. I hear people trying to play both sides of the story. And that's why I think the story, and I think Fusion's been guilty of this in the past as well, that we're trying to compare ourselves to very recent history and kind of mock it a little bit. Like education's been the same for hundreds of years. And some of these new alternative education models and, college players who are inventing new models of being more career focused, et cetera, are trying to say we're the new shiny thing. And at the same time, I'm saying, but I'm also what was great about education 2,000 years ago. I'm actually a original orthodoxy. So I'm making fun of the past in order to go back to the very far past. And I think there could be a little bit of schism in that storytelling here in terms of what are you pitching for? Are you shiny and new, or are you orthodox? And it's a little bit of a mix of both. So I understand the challenge, and I stumble with it as well sometimes.
Absolutely. So that makes perfect sense. But going back to the question of marketing tactics, you mentioned that no one is really searching for one-to-one private schooling. It's more a matter of getting in front of people who are searching for private schools within the demographic and interests that you're looking for, and then kind of educating them that one-to-one is the best way for them to go, and telling that story. Are there any specific marketing tactics or channels that have tended to work well for you in terms of getting those visits to the campus or generating those leads?
Yeah, I think the biggest reminder for me, I just crossed a year into my stint at Fusion Academy, and I think it's a similar lesson that I've learned at every chapter along the way, that in order to win in digital marketing, you need to target intent. So if you sell a mass market product to the masses, you might not need to worry about target. You can jump on paid social, tell Facebook what you're selling, and their models over time will find your audience. If you're selling education, selling to anyone without children in that age group is a waste of your money. If you're selling high-end private education, selling to anyone without the affluence required to purchase is a waste of your money. And so even if you're targeting those demographic and psychographic factors correctly, are you targeting folks who are actually in the consideration set? Or do they have no idea that there is a problem with traditional school, and that their kid might be having a problem that they're not aware of, or their kid might not be maxing out on their potential? And if that's true, now I have to convince them that there is a problem. It is much easier as a marketer to sell to people already convinced that there is a problem. Now, to be a great marketer, you have to do both. But there's a reason higher ed marketing lives and dies on the two buckets of organic brand and paid search. If I'm targeting a search query on Google, best private college in Boulder, Colorado, that is an audience actively shopping for private college education in Boulder, Colorado. That is my ideal audience if I am a private college near Boulder, Colorado. Now, even in that use case, you have to have a killer funnel game because they did not type in your school. They typed it in because they don't know where to go. So you have to introduce yourself. You have to get them to your website. You have to convince them to give over their information. You have to contact them immediately. You have to do all of the right stuff operationally. But if I am that private college in Boulder, Colorado, putting up digital signage in an airport targets the right geography, but not the right audience. It might target your audience being your board of directors, and that may be politically necessary. But if you're looking to target students, if you're looking to target adult students shopping for private education, you need to do things that target that very specific group.
Right. So it sounds like in your market, for example, there are a larger number of people searching for private schools that there are that have a budget to spend on your particular product. So it's as much in order to make an efficient use of your ad spend, it's almost as much as filtering out the audience that isn't looking for your tier of service.
Yeah, we have 80 schools across the country. They tend to be in tier one markets and in fairly affluent metros or suburban outlets. And so when I think about targeting, it is ideal if they have made their intent known through paid search that they are typing in, they're looking for a best private school near me. But if they are 45 minutes from my campus, it's probably going to be tough. If they're coming from a low affluence area, it's probably going to be tough. And so, really figuring out what that Venn diagram of intent, affluence, distance, if you are targeting an in person product, you really have to think about that Venn diagram overlap to make sure you're targeting super well.
Right. And then presumably once you do have the targeting in place, it's more a matter of just perfecting your funnel, getting the messaging across in a way that makes the demo or the visit to campus as compelling as possible for you.
And I think the biggest difference between Fusion Academy marketing and my historic experience college marketing is people have an idea what college is, almost in a negative sense of it's a commodity. All college is kind of the same. And so I'm looking for college whose brand I kind of trust is maybe close to me. Us, they clicked on an ad when they typed in private school and they get on the call with our call center. And our call center will say, what made you interested in one-to-one education? They go, what the hell is one-to-one education? They might not have even read the page. They just clicked, saw some things and gave us their info. And so we have, I think, a much harder storytelling challenge than many colleges. I think we have a better story than a lot of education providers, but you're starting from scratch almost every time with our audience. And so that's one of the biggest challenges. Yes, operationally, you have to be perfect to get people through your funnel, but we have the added burden of helping educate them on a model they might not have known existed until 5 seconds before.
Right, absolutely. It sounds like you have a big leap to go in terms of educating people about what one-to-one education is and why it's the best route for their child in their situation.
Exactly. And, fortunately, it comes fairly intuitively to people. It's, colleges have been playing this game for a long time. 12 to 1 student teacher ratio, 10 to 1 student teacher ratio. I get to say 1 to 1. It inherently makes sense to people, but it is like, so it's like tutoring, but like all day long. And how does that work? And so there's a lot of I'm sure this is better, but how expensive is this? And how does this actually work? I've never seen anything like this before. So it's a big storytelling.
Definitely. It sounds like there's a lot of opportunities for thought leadership and storytelling in terms of your content as well.
I mean, yes. I mean, the fun thing was the last few years, the Department of Education was doing a lot of storytelling for us. They were seeing the COVID slide and a lot of student outcomes slip over the last couple and a half years, and people have various theories on why that is. But there was some really, really interesting data in school districts that had instituted high dosage tutoring or high impact tutoring before or after school, and they saw a thinner slide in those schools. And so the Secretary of Education was going around saying, we've got to figure out one-to-one education. And so our story for both the parent and the press is traditional schools are trying to figure out how to put more one-to-one time in their school day. and we built our entire schools around it. And so being able to leverage off the kind of story that's in the larger academic world right now and being able to leverage it and saying they're really going around saying, how do we make our schools more like Fusion? And we say, we agree. We've seen the same data. It's why we built our schools this way.
Sure. And I think that there is some opportunity for Fusion in terms of partnering with other district administrators and other schools in that respect, if I'm understanding correctly. Is that part of your marketing strategy as well?
As a marketer, I continue to grow in my respect for outbound sales and partnerships over time. And so, yes, when I think every marketer should think about this in terms of who already owns my audience, and can I just pay them to market my message to them, or do I have to like do this big 10-year thought leadership play where I slowly build my SEO over time and make myself number one for this audience? How do I shortcut my way in front of this audience? I think it's why colleges were too dependent on College Board for such a long time, and why it was the livelihood of higher ed marketing for so long. If a student is actively taking the ACT or the SAT, there is an amazingly high chance they are currently college shopping. So in terms of like, how do I look around the world and try to find college shoppers? The College Board owns all those people. And so a lot of colleges went there first. Now, I would argue we targeted incorrectly. We were way too optimistic about, oh, the students from Nashville, Tennessee, they're super going to be looking at my school in Wyoming. And so I think colleges have gotten smarter and college marketers have gotten smarter about trying to figure out what those models look like in terms of the right fit student for your school, depending on where they're coming from. But for me in this new place, it's what's my similar learning here. And so when I think about a student for whom traditional school isn't working great, who often knows about those kids first? Well, school counselors are one of those folks. And so our outbound sales team creates local relationships around our 80 campuses, and school counselors are one of our primary audiences. We need to go to where our audience is versus just trying to build it and they will come kind of marketing inbound approach that I think a lot of us were a little bit too wishful thinking on for the past decade.
Definitely. That makes good sense. So it sounds like your marketing strategy has been a blend of these kind of partnerships and then performance marketing and paid media for the inbound, which we discussed.
It's whatever works. I mean, I think that's my joke about how 15% of my playbook has translated to every position. I've had places where inbound works amazingly well, and it was the 80% of our leads were coming in through inbound play. When I'm at a place like Fusion Academy, where if they are not an active private school shopper, if they don't have some level of affluence, I can create all the inbound content I want about education and new models in education, but it's so irrelevant compared to what my actual Fusion family looks like. And so you have to change your script. Maybe you are a great inbound marketer and you got to a new spot, and inbound isn't going to be the game. You have to be okay getting rid of the games that worked for you in the past if they're not working now. And so then it's like, boy, I don't know how to do partnerships. Figure it out. Partnerships might be the great game. So figure out people who are doing it well and chase that game. At Fusion, it is the lion's share of our students come from our partnerships.
Well, that's so interesting. It sounds like a totally unique space and a new challenge and something you haven't really seen before. So pivoting to that challenge is super interesting. You mentioned that a little bit about the trend in what's going on in education. I know that there's been a whirlwind of transformation in the space recently with COVID, with VC funding going up and down and up again all over the place. I'm wondering what you feel are the most striking challenges and how you've addressed those challenges and how you see things going in the near future.
Trends in education at large?
Yeah, trends in education at large and how that's impacted Fusion's model and kind of how you see that impacting the broader space and how you feel marketers should address that going forward.
That's a great one. I think why I got into education marketing when I did was because edX, Coursera, Harvard X were brand new on the scene, and I thought they were about to change education. I thought they were finally democratizing education, that they were going to take their world class curriculum that had been sitting behind a $75,000 to $100,000 a year paywall and only available to 20,000 people in the entire world, and they were going to give it all away for free or nearly free. And I wrongly thought that that was going to change everything. I wrongly thought that it was the curriculum, the information itself that made college so valuable. And I think at the time, younger in my career, I underestimated student motivation. I underestimated mentoring. I underestimated pedagogy. And I think 15 years later, we're finally starting to get close where I thought we were in 2009. But I think the future of education is personalization. And that's why I came to Fusion. I think hopefully we will have some mix of AI empowered instruction that will help transform our schools from a how do I teach to the middle in a 30 to 1 class to how can I teach every student the way they need and they learn. So I'm really, really excited about that as a parent of a 12 and a 4-year old. I'm really excited about the future of education being personalization. And it's why I'm at Fusion. When I think about as a marketer, how do I live in this world? I think that I am nervous at the reality that consumer trust in everything is decreasing and that consumer trust in education is decreasing as well. I think that people are continuing to question the value of education, that they are being more thoughtful and less blind in their decision making of course, next levels of education are better. Of course, college is worth it. I think we are all coming to the reality of that it is no longer a no brainer that if I get a college degree in anything, that I will for sure be better off with that degree and the debt incurred through getting it than when I started. We're also not growing from a population standpoint anymore. People have written dramatically about the enrollment decline and cliff. And so, in that world of increasing competition, increasing agency from families over questioning the value of education, I think we have to do everything better. I think we have to be smarter strategically. I think we have to be tighter operationally. I think we have to be masterclass storytellers. I think we have to be incredibly strong digitally. I'm excited about all the shiny new tools in AI and creative performance and LLMs and storytelling, but we just have to be better about everything. And we have to not think that we can digitally offload our customer experience. I think as a digital marketer, I would love a world where we don't need a call center. We don't even need enrollment folks, or we don't need heads of schools. I can just get everyone to enrollment directly through my funnel. And maybe you can, but you probably can't. And so thinking people's time is valuable. How do I not overrun our heads of schools and our admissions heads and our DSDs? Rather, how do I white glove that experience? How do I create this really, really high touch white glove personal experience when I'm pitching the most personalized education in the world? I think it is this weird mix of getting as strong as we can digitally through modeling and AI, and at the same time doubling down on personalization, on the human interaction, and on all those touch points.
Absolutely. A lot to unpack there. I think what you said about the future of education being personalized and one to one and kind of mentor led, 100% agree with that. And a lot of the more forward thinking brands that we've been working with here at Journey Engine in the K 12 as well as the higher education space. And actually, we're working with a lot of workforce technology companies as well. And I think mentorship and one to one learning is important throughout all of those spaces. So, taking a youngster in the K to 12 space, mentoring them and educating them through higher education and continuing that journey through to their career. I think there's a lot of forward-thinking companies that are working on a technology solution to those challenges, and brands like Fusion are at the forefront of that. And kind of educating the market is a really exciting challenge from a marketing, storytelling, and messaging perspective. So it's just super interesting to hear your perspective on this and the tactics that you've been employing.
And if I'm a college marketer, I'm probably really excited about some future prophetics on this idea of you tended to get a degree because you were going to work in that field for 30 years. And as folks change careers every 5 years now, the question is, what does a lifelong learner look like? How can my university help support and facilitate lifelong learners with this idea of real continuing education that helps prepare me for career changes every 5 years? I think we all kind of nod when we hear that story and we philosophically agree with it, but we go, what the hell does that enrollment model look like? What does that financial model look like? That's way harder. And so I think as marketers, we're so good at seeing far into the future, and we often are too optimistic and thinking that the inevitable is going to happen immediately. And so I think it really is how do we use our marketing and storytelling superpowers and really getting real with operations and build those models together based upon where we see the industry going, realizing that some of this, where everything is going, is a hugely different financial model than we've ever had before. And so it is going to be a difficult climb getting to that new space.
Definitely. It's going to be a difficult climb, but I think a really exciting challenge. And I'm really excited to see how Fusion deals with that going forward. And I'm super excited to help brands that are furthering this objective of kind of taking the space from memorization of theory to kind of mentor-led practical experience that is going to benefit the student in the long run. So super excited to see how brands like Fusion are tackling this problem in the future.
There's no better field in the world to be in than education. It is fun. It is super hard. It feels so important. It is so important. It's the best. That's why I've never looked back.
Awesome. Eric, thank you so much. That's all the questions I have for today. I really appreciate you coming in. This has been awesome, and looking forward to see what you're doing in the future.
Thanks for having me, Justin. Really appreciate it.